Hello, and welcome to another edition of Hooked on Health. I'm your host, Brian Chambers. Hooked on Health is the show where we discuss and demonstrate simple, effective techniques for feeling, functioning, and looking your best. On the first 3 episodes of Hooked on Health, this is our 4th show, by the way. I'm really psyched to be here, so before I launch into it, I want to send a shout out to the volunteer crew here at CAN TV in Chicago and to the staff. Show wouldn't be possible without the help of the staff and the facility, and I'm just really grateful. So I was saying on the first 3 episodes of Hooked on Health, I was talking about my favorite topic, which is posture. And in the first show, I demonstrated techniques for improving your standing posture. The second show was about sitting posture, sitting at your computer at work. And the third episode was about a method that you can use to dramatically correct your posture, exercises that you can do on the floor. Those 3 episodes are all available on my YouTube channel. If you just YouTube Brian Chambers, Hooked on Health, you'll find it. So we taped those shows last month or a couple months ago, and when I was getting ready for today's shooting, I was wondering, where should I go for my second topic? What's the second most important thing that I want to discuss and share with people? There's so many topics and issues in health, right? Your diet and your exercise and the different techniques, exercise techniques, yoga and Pilates and aerobics, and there's so much to talk about, and we will get to those in future episodes, but I realized clearly the next most important thing that I wanted to talk about was the issue of stress. Stress. Does anybody out there ever feel stress? Mental and emotional stress, physical stress? It's in the news so much, right? And I think that it's ironic and cruel in a funny way that stress creates its own stress, right? Because every time you hear a new science and medical article about stress, it talks about the effects it has on your body. It increases the risk of heart disease, it increases your blood pressure. Now there's evidence that it actually will, prolonged stress will actually make your brain shrink. So you're learning about stress and it's making you stressed. So that is a vicious cycle that I want to try to break, certainly for myself, and help other people to break that too. The related thing to that about being stressed about stress is that then when you try to practice relaxation techniques, you get anxious about being able to relax. You get performance anxiety about relaxing, and that's just too ironic as well. So these are the things that I'm going to address today with as practical and simple an approach as I can convey. Because the goal on Hooked on Health is always to simplify and demystify this stuff. Diet, exercise, stress relief, they shouldn't be complicated or leave a person feeling like they're not able to do it, because everybody is. So I think that the first thing that I'm going to go into in terms of effective stress relief techniques is meditation. Meditation, like yoga, has grown enormously in the United States over the recent years. And yet still, there are a lot of people that are intimidated by the idea of meditation, or they've tried meditation and they get frustrated and feel like they can't do it right. And so what I tell all my clients and students is, if they're feeling that frustration or that anxiety about their ability to meditate, my message is let go of that. Get over any idea that you're going to become like the guru sitting on the mountaintop and that your mind is going to become a perfect blank. That isn't really what most of meditation is about. So I think that I'm going to demonstrate a simple meditation technique sitting in the chair here. And the reason that I'm going to do that is that a lot of people, I think that meditation is something that you are supposed to do sitting on the floor cross-legged, like a yogi or in the lotus position. But what I want to emphasize to all my students and anybody listening is that the only thing that ever really matters, but certainly the most important thing in a meditation practice, is to be comfortable. So getting comfortable in a chair And as I narrate this, this is probably, I think, going to take no more than 5 minutes. So if you're watching, I definitely am encouraging you to follow along with me. Since I'll be narrating principles of meditation, it might not be possible for you to actually practice meditation because you're going to be listening to me. But I think that it will help you if you then go to practice on your own. So as you can see, I'm just employing the simple, strict sitting approach that I discussed in the second episode of Hooked on Health. I'm forward on my chair, so my sits bones are square on the floor. My feet are flat on the floor. My knees are straight in front of me. And I'm just trying to practice proper posture. Practicing proper physical posture is one of the foundations of reducing stress, because if you reduce physical stress, it takes a load off the whole system, mind and body. And mind-body is something I'm going to come back to pretty soon to talk about the relationship between physical pain and emotional stress. So, meditation. What is this meditation thing that we keep hearing about? There are many schools of meditation, and there are many techniques that you can employ. And I am not picking and choosing about any of them. So if you want to read books or get a coach, that's great. But to me, and the way that I teach this, is that meditation is really about nothing more than sitting quietly. There was a study done a couple of years ago, maybe some of you noticed it, where they found that only a tiny percentage of people that were selected for this study were able to actually sit still and quietly for 2 minutes. That most people cannot sit quietly and still for 2 minutes. They'll fidget, they'll move, they'll need to talk. So my actual demonstration in the meditation is probably only going to be about 2 minutes today. And again, I encourage you to follow along. So I was saying it's really just about sitting still and quietly. Well, when you go to sit down and be quiet and still, what is typically going to happen? You can try doing it with me right now and pay attention to your thoughts. Your mind is probably preoccupied with at least a few things. And the fascinating thing about practicing meditation is it gives you an opportunity, if you practice, to step aside from your mind for a minute and just observe it. And so the idea is that you will still have thoughts, but you're not actively engaging them. And I think that this is where a lot of people get frustrated and fidgety, is that thoughts keep on intruding and they're not able to make their mind go blank. Well, again, making your mind go blank is extremely unlikely. So if it happens, it's almost like more of a gift than it is something that you've actually achieved. And this is the heart of what I'm trying to emphasize to people, is that whether your thoughts calm down and fade away or not, you will still get the benefits of meditation just by practicing. What are the benefits of meditation? Reduced stress, clearer mind, and better functioning. I know that's a big promise to make, but the science is increasingly there for the biological and, if you will, biological things that they can measure in terms of heart rate, blood pressure, brainwave activity, and then subjective stuff, the way that you feel about your life day to day. And so what I can pretty much promise to any of you that have considered meditation but haven't practiced it or tried and gave up is that if you can put just like 3 days in a row together, 3 or 4 days of literally just a few minutes of sitting quietly and practicing disengaging from your thoughts, I can all but promise, I would certainly predict, that round about the 3rd or 4th day, you're going to notice that you feel better. Most of us have a point in the day where the stress kind of peaks. They just feel really frazzled. And you're probably going to notice that it's that point of your day where you feel better. And you'll say, oh, wow, I feel undeniably better. So, and again, when I said disengage your thoughts, it's that you notice that there's a dialogue or monologue going on in your head, but you're not actively following it. And what that means is that each time you realize that you're having these thoughts, don't get frustrated, don't get down on yourself. On the contrary, you kind of laugh. You go, oh, there goes my brain, chatter, 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 and start over again. And that's, I think, what frustrates people is that even in a few minutes of meditation, you might be required to actively let go of the thought dozens of times, over and over again. You're disengaging from the thought. Now, I talked about different schools of meditation. Most people have probably heard the word mantra. There's many schools of meditation that use mantras, and what the purpose of it, in my understanding, is the mantra gives you a sound to focus on, so that if you have something specific to focus on, it pushes away all the other thoughts. In my experience, it doesn't work that well for me, so I take a different approach, which is just that active disengagement from thoughts. And this is my personal tip that you might want to try when you meditate, is that I just listen. So I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to take not even a minute, but about 30 seconds, and you'll just see me live on camera practicing my own technique of meditation, which is to listen without any judgment of what I'm hearing. And I tell you, the really cool thing about this is that when you get familiar, I think that everybody has to develop their own sort of style, their own approach that feels right for you. And the purpose is to feel better. So I'm not a very disciplined or consistent meditator. I was talking with one of our crew today who is a seasoned and disciplined meditator about the importance of doing it consistently. And I'll confess right here that I tend to slip away from a meditation practice when things are low stress. And then I go back to it when I'm going crazy with stress. It's like I seek refuge in the meditation. And that's okay. I'm not going to beat up on myself about it. But it's like a lot of things. We take care of a problem, and we take care of a problem until it's not really a problem anymore. And then we stop doing what got us out of trouble until it comes back. So, but what I was saying was just in that 30, 45 seconds, whatever it was, I could feel that feeling of calm. I could feel it in my body. The muscles relaxing, the breath getting a little bit more full and relaxed. And there's an interplay, of course, between mind and body. So I'm going to come back to that topic now. Mind and body are one thing, right? And certainly in the fields of yoga, meditation, a lot of the holistic and alternative therapies especially, there's a lot of reference to mind-body, body-mind unity. Mind and body are one. And a lot of the medical profession has been called out for not acknowledging that. People complain that the doctors only treat you as a collection of symptoms, that you're just whatever your diagnosis is, and they're not really treating the whole person. I used to be in that camp, that would criticize the medical profession a lot for doing that, and I've come to mellow out on that a lot because I realize that it's not even necessarily true. It's just that that's what doctors are trained and being paid to do, is to treat your symptoms. But there's a lot of great medical doctors out there who do recognize the role of mind and emotions, and they do try to treat the whole person. But my point here is that, yes, obviously mind and body are one, but for the purposes of stress and for pain, So I'll be segueing into physical pain here in a moment too. Mind and body are not one. Mind and body are two. Okay, so stay with me on this. We need to be able to think of ourselves as one mind-body being, but we also need to be able to think of ourselves as a mind and a body. And here's why. If you are stressed out mentally and emotionally, whether it's from difficult circumstances around you or just because you're worrisome and anxious by nature, or both, we know now beyond any shadow of a doubt that that starts to take a toll on your body. And that's that cruel fear of like, relax, or you're gonna be sick. Like, well, that stresses you out even more. So stay with me on this, and just as a concept, what I encourage you to adopt is this idea that, yes, I'm stressed, but that doesn't mean my body has to suffer. And that's why things like posture and breath are so key. Because if you simply practice the physical skill of holding your body in a nice, aligned, long, balanced position, then the mental and emotional stress can't really get to your body. You won't be hunched or kind of twisted or tight. So I'm jumping around on a few different tangents here, but they're all related, so stay with me. That in the first 3 episodes when I was talking about posture and the physical muscular actions required, I was also talking about how eventually you'll get good at doing it and being relaxed at the same time. And that, of course, is the point. The point is not to be like a robot and stiff as a board. Well, like, okay, I'm nice and straight and tall. Because if you're tight, or if you're just doing it because somebody told you to, that's not actually achieving what it is you're trying to achieve, which is simultaneously being properly aligned and properly balanced and being relaxed while you're doing it. But think about that. It's such a win-win thing. So if you are mentally stressed for a long period of time, it starts to take a toll on your body. So rather than be afraid of what those consequences are, and whether you get really good at managing mental stress or you never get good at managing mental stress, you can at least protect your body through proper use of it. The flip side is the same thing. We all know, has anybody ever had physical pain? Has anybody ever been injured, had a prolonged illness, had anything that caused them physical pain in their body? You will know that the longer it goes on, the more stressful it is for your mind and your emotions. Physical pain is scary, it creates anxiety, it drains you of energy. So now you're worried about that, everything becomes harder. So, in keeping with the idea that if you can protect your body from mental stress, you can protect your mind from physical stress. And how do you do that? Again, it's a pretty simple principle, tricky in practice, but simple in principle. And this is all it is. You are not your body. You are way, way more than your body. So while we talk about mind and body being one, and of course you can't do anything without a body, we depend upon our bodies to be able to function, right? To live, to enjoy life. But if your body is letting you down, or it's suffering, it's really important to be able to affirm, I am more than my body. So you can acknowledge with compassion for yourself, yes, my arm hurts, my leg hurts, my knee hurts. But that doesn't define me. You can step away from it. So in the same way that when you're meditating, the ability to disengage from your own thoughts and recognize these thoughts are not me. Normally your thoughts feel like that's all you are, is what you're thinking. And of course, in reality, we are the product of our thoughts. But that's why it's so important on a regular basis to disengage from your thoughts. And remember a fundamental truth, that you are more than your thoughts. You're more than your body. You're certainly more than your physical pain. So I hope some of this resonates with you, because I promise you, from my own practice and from working with thousands of people over the years, the better we can get at these simple little reframing the way you think about things, it gives you some stress relief. It reduces your stress. And that's what this whole segment of our show today is about, is reliable, reproducible techniques for reducing stress. And so I'm going to, I think, start to wrap up this segment here. And that is that meditation, whatever your notions about it or whatever frustrations you may have had about it, I promise you, sit down, get comfortable, sit up tall. This is my opinion. If you want to sit in a recliner, I mean, you can meditate in any position that's comfortable. You can lay down on the floor, which I'm about to demonstrate something on the floor. I find that when I go to meditate and lay down, I get sleepy. I've got the crew. I've got the crew today. We're going to take a short break here from the program. The director on today's show is Dave Rader. Dave, thanks so much. Audio, Deborah Crable. Thanks for being here, Deb. Camera 3, Barbara Ralphman. Sorry, Barbara Ralphman on camera 3. Bob Moore, floor manager, and camera 1. And the CanTV studio staff. God bless you guys. However, that was a false alarm, because we're going to keep rolling camera, okay? I'm going to lay out all this information while it's fresh in my mind, getting ready for today, so we're not going to break for an episode break. I was talking about physical pain and its effect on mental stress. What is the single most common complaint about physical pain that takes people to the doctor? Play along at home and guess. I'm about to give you the answer. It's low back pain. Oy. Low back pain. We're going to talk about low back pain, and we're going to talk about repetitive stress type pains. But here what I'm about to demonstrate, and I would like, if you're at home and you have low back pain and you can follow along with me, please do, because this is gold. I'm going to lay down on my back here. This is what I call Back Rehab 101. Back Rehab 101. Pretty much, now it's time for my disclaimer that I have to make, I think, every episode. I certainly should. Everything on Hooked on Health, all the information presented is for informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, prevent, treat, or cure any disease. Okay? Having said that, the information I present on Hooked on Health is science-backed, generally accepted as conservative by the medical profession, and is the kind of information and therapies that you will get from physical therapists, personal trainers such as myself, etc. Now, low back pain. Presuming that you can get into this position, this is half of what you're doing. Now, there's a term that's become more popular in recent years that I love, and the term is constructive rest. Constructive rest. Doesn't that just sound great, hearing it? Like, oh, constructive rest. That is as distinguished from just chilling. Lounging on the couch, for instance, is not constructive rest in the sense that I'm about to explain. What's meant by it is that you are taking a very deliberate time out to rest the body and to help with alignment and help with pain. So this position, as you can see, is nice and aligned. And I'm going to practice what I preach here from episode 3 and try and get my shoulders a little bit wider and my body pressed down into the floor. Now we come to the back pain part specifically. All that I'm asking you to do is compress your core and push your low back into the floor. And keep it there. And keep breathing. Okay, because the first time I learned this, and almost every person that I work with, I tell them to push their low back until it's flat, pressed against the floor, and people start holding their breath like that. So you say 2 rules. Keep the low back pressed into the floor and keep breathing. Doesn't have to be any real specific technique of breath, just keep getting air. So I'm continuing to do this right now. The beauty of this move for low back pain is that it's the first place you can go. Again, talk to your doctor, use your own judgment of what hurts and doesn't hurt. But this move is so gentle and so mild that you can people can usually start doing it even when they're still actively having back pain. Unless it hurts too much to get down on the floor. If it hurts too much to do it, then of course don't do it. But the idea is that you're just engaging these core muscles in a super gentle way. It's not strenuous. It's not Pilates or anything. And your body loves this because you're sending a signal through the muscles and the joints of your SI, your sacroiliac joint, that everything is just stabilizing. So I'm doing it right now. I was standing a long time today doing some paperwork standing, and I was feeling a little bit of fatigue in my low back. So constructive rest, a lot of my students look at me like I'm nuts, but I tell them at least one time during the workday, do this. Get down on your back and do this. And they're like, well, I don't have any room at the office, or people will look at me funny, and I'm like, don't worry about what people think about you. And my point is it's extremely practical because usually if you throw your back out or you get some kind of tweaked muscle over the course of a long workday, why did it happen? It's simple. You pushed yourself too hard, too long. So what I try to say to people is, look, if you've got a long workday, and if you knew that the difference between coming through the end of that workday feeling, yeah, I'm tired, but I'm okay, or throwing your back out and being bedridden or in pain, and that the only difference between those two things was like 90 seconds of rest, which would you do? Because I'm literally, in terms of constructive rest, in terms of this position, not necessarily for back pain, but just getting in this relaxed position, this will save your low back. The muscles of our back are designed to work for hours and hours and hours on end. We're human beings. And muscle activity is driven in part by levels of enzymes, chemicals in the muscles. And as long as those chemicals can get refreshed and recharged, you're good to go. But at some point, no matter who you are, it gets depleted. And once those enzymes in the muscles get depleted to a certain level, now you're in the red zone. Now you're in the danger zone where you could literally pull a muscle, hurt your back any moment. I'm not trying to scare people here, even though it is kind of scary. My point is more to empower you, motivate you to recognize, oh, I have a choice. So if you know it's going to be a long day, sometime during the day, like in the afternoon, time out. 90 seconds even. That's the miracle of the human body, is that those enzymes will recharge in the muscles pretty fast. If you just take all the stress off them for a couple minutes, the enzymes will recharge, and then you'll be good to go. All right, so I know I talked about 2 things there, as I usually do talk about at least 2 things at a time. But for low back pain, I promise you, get in this position and compress your stomach so that your core, so that your back is flat. Just practice. That's Back Rehab 101. We're not getting into the, there's many other elements of that where it progresses, but I promise you if you just do that, just do it as self-care, you're going to feel better. My segue into the next segment is a really neat technique. So I'm going to get ready to stand back up here. Now, I want to make up a bumper sticker that says life is repetitive stress. You hear about repetitive stress a lot, repetitive motion disorders. People that do the same thing over and over again all day, you get carpal tunnel syndrome, tendinitis, are two big ones, right? Carpal tunnel, hand pain, forearm pain. This technique that I'm about to demonstrate really has changed my life. You could say, I don't think it's an overstatement. And it's for your hands and your forearm. Bear with me 1 second. I've got here just a bottle of basic oil, skin oil. And I've got in my other hand a stone. You get a close-up's not really vital, but if you can get it. This, I think, is a jasper stone, but it's not a big detail. What I'm recommending to you is that anything with about that dimension of a soft edge, and in Chinese medicine, they often use just like a Chinese soup spoon. So anything, a spoon, a crystal. I used to have this rose quartz crystal that had just the right edge on it that I loved. But this is a technique called scraping. And I promise you, if it looks a little strange, you're going to love it. So this is for all types of repetitive stress in your hands and your forearms. Put a little bit of oil on your skin and then start scraping. And I was trained in this technique for body work, for therapeutic body work years ago, but I kind of forgot about it for self-care. And then a few years ago, I was working at a collegiate swim competition, a big world-class collegiate swim competition with another therapist by the name of John LaFlamme. Sending a shout out to John LaFlamme in Phoenix. And we were working so hard, hour after hour, on these collegiate swimmers doing post-race and pre-race tune-ups. Just jump on the table and work on their muscles. And these are people with really, dense muscles that need a lot of deep tissue work. So our hands were getting tired. And John pulls out this stone, and he starts scraping his hands like this. And I'm on the other side of the room. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm scraping my fingers and my hands." And I said, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." And if you can see, if we can get back into some close-ups, it's not really difficult and you don't want to feel intimidated. I am literally just scraping the edge of the stone across every surface of my hand that I can. Especially though the palm are surfaces. And why? What is this about? Well, just the pressure is therapeutic and should feel pretty good to you. But we also, this kind of scraping motion does literally change the tissue. It helps the fibers get lined up. And this is an ancient therapeutic method. But there's a modern version of it that some of you may have heard of called Graston technique. Graston technique. And that's where the therapist will use these metal implements. They've got all kinds of different sizes and shapes of these metal. They look kind of scary. They look like blades. And they are, but they're dull. But different sizes, they use on the entire body. And it's one of the few modalities that I think can have a lot of benefit for you. I'm not a big fan of cupping, but I don't want to get controversial. We're going to get controversial on future episodes talking about what therapies work and what don't work. But this scraping, I promise you, I remember that day when I was reintroduced to it, and he finished working on his hands, and he goes, "I feel like I got a new pair of hands." And that's kind of how I feel now. My hands feel energized, looser, more comfortable. So, and what did I just do that for a few minutes, probably? And then the same thing goes on the forearm. Really anywhere you can do this, but the hands are so many muscles that you can get a lot done quickly. The other technique, though, besides scraping that I recommend all manner of self-massage trigger point stuff. Highly recommend it, especially for your forearms, tennis elbow, and golfer's elbow, right? Tennis elbow is the outside, lateral epicondylitis, medial epicondylitis. If most people are tender, if you put pressure there, I'm surprised I'm feeling relatively good today. But do this at home. I'm sure some of you have had tendonitis in your elbow, and you can definitely help it with simple pressure on your own. Simple pressure. So those are two self-care techniques that I highly recommend for hand and forearm pain. And the low back stuff we went over earlier. On a future episode, we're going to come back and do the next steps in that low back rehab approach. But I promise you at home, if you've got low back pain, just practice that. I think that for today, that is going to start to wrap it up. But because I'm such a posture nut, I do want to close out the show today with a real quick review of the first two episodes in terms of posture, because that's the most important thing that everybody can do, and that the reason I emphasize it so much is that self-care techniques, exercise, the way that you eat, those are all individual contained things that you are doing or not doing. But you have to take time out from whatever else you're doing to do it. By definition, you can't exercise and be doing your job at work. You can't meditate and be watching TV or whatever. But posture is a thing that's always with you. So no matter what else you're doing, it needs to be addressed. And the more that you practice it, the better you're going to get at it. So I'm going to do it for myself right now. It's been a hard day. So the elements of proper standing technique are to start with your feet and simply feel your feet balanced evenly on the floor and direct your weight, the lines of force, through the tripod of your feet, the 3 points, the heel, and then the big toe and the pinky toe. Or specifically, between the big toe and the second toe, and between the pinky toe and the fourth toe. I'm going to kneel down and pinpoint these if you can follow me. So not literally between the toes, but at the base of the toes. And you'll feel them. You'll feel that divot where the bones come together. One of the many things I love about my job is I get to remind myself over and over again of these simplest things that are so valuable. So the tripod is the 1, 2, and 3 right in the middle of your heel. So I'm back up, feeling that balance, and now feeling lift on both sides of my legs, up into my pelvis, into my core. Now I'm in my core. Good. Right here. Not slumped under, not stuck out. Where's the right position for your pelvis, for your hips and your butt? Where? Figure it out. You can do it. Everything about practicing postures, when you start to feel what's happening and you start to get better at feeling what is longer, that's all you're looking for, is what's long. So we've got the feet, legs, up into the core. Now we come up to the shoulders. This will be good when I watch this later to see whether I was actually doing what I'm recommending to you, because I'm just like everybody else. I'm just trying to practice and feel better. But now I'm up to my shoulders. And what this is very much about is getting the shoulders to go wide. Not high, not drooped, but wide. And that has a lot to do with the lats and the back muscles. Getting the shoulders on the back. That's an expression from Pilates, I think. Get your shoulders on your back. Recognize that doesn't mean hold them back. A lot of people will pull their shoulders back. They think that's good posture. I promise you it isn't. There's just out. Feet, legs, core, shoulders, and saving the best for last, head. You want to get your head, you know those bobblehead dolls? Like the Cubs bobblehead dolls? you want to kind of feel a little bit like a bobblehead person. You want to feel like your head is not stuck on your neck, but you cultivate this sense of fluid. You have discs in between your vertebrae, and they're spongy. So your head is, in fact, cushioned and floating. So cultivate that, and then just get your head back over your shoulders. If you can do this, if you can just do this a few times a day, where you go, okay, I'm gonna tune in and practice it for a minute, I promise you, very steadily, it'll start to become more and more second nature. And then sometime down the road, for most people it's 2 or 3 months, you'll catch yourself doing it right. And you'll say, oh wow, I'm doing it right and I wasn't even thinking about it. So that's really that golden moment that you're trying to get to. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. This is our 4th episode, and I'm really looking forward to doing some more and to getting these guests on. We were going to have a yoga teacher today, but unfortunately they weren't able to make it. So upcoming episodes definitely will be having some yoga teachers, some body workers, and some other really interesting and fun stuff down the road. Until then, please remember, all the things that I'm demonstrating or any other techniques that you get from therapists or teachers, you do it for yourself because you want to take care of yourself, because you care. So until then, take good care of yourself, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.